Reggie, thank you so much for your time on the lead this afternoon. You have described the story by the Pretoria News as the lowest point of journalism, the collapse of journalistic ethics and standards. Have you engaged the journalist involved and his company, Independent Media, which has said it stands by the journalist?
Well, yeah. Independent Media, they did their internal investigation, and then they told us that, they are satisfied with that and they stand by their journalists. In this case, Piet Rampedi, who's the editor-in-chief of the Pretoria News. Unfortunately, Independent Media, Clement, as you may know, they are not part of the Press Council of South Africa. They have their own internal Press Council. Their editors are not members of the South African National Editors Forum. But for a mere fact that this story was published here in South Africa and we represent the broader and most editors, and we are the forum representing most editors, we are outraged by this story and we are not impressed with it at all. It's the lowest point in terms of journalistic ethics. It's really embarrassing to the profession. And if you look at the kind of investment of late what Sanef has done when it comes to ethics, you would know that about 3 years ago we commissioned retired Judge Katie Sedgwell to look into ethics in the newsroom, to look at how journalists carry themselves. And we are really working hard as a media fraternity to regain the trust from the public. And now, Piet Rampedi goes ahead and publishes such a story, which is a mystery to all of us, that where are the 10 babies?
So even if Independent Media is not a signatory of the press code, but surely there are basic journalistic principles that it must abide by, and the company actually believes that it did abide by those principles. What's the next step on your side? What can you do? You called for an independent inquiry into the report. The company has released the findings of what they called a private investigation, and they stand by the story. Are you satisfied with their probe?
We are not at all. I mean, the latest report from the company, instead of them reaching out to us and say, can we talk about this, and then can we find an amicable way of how we can retract the story, they still saying they stand by the story. Instead now, the latest report is that they want government to tell them where the babies are. I mean, what we saw here, we saw a monumental failure in terms of basic journalistic standards. I mean, even a CAP reporter would know that, there are basics to cover. Those basics were not covered yet. The babies are not there. They are now saying we stand by our story. We know the babies exist, but it's a mystery of where the 10 babies are.
Yeah. What impact do you think this reporting has had on the media in general, particularly the local media on the global stage?
It's a huge negative impact, unfortunately, Clement, because this kind of reporting, I mean, it goes on to say, can we have a mainstream title based in the mother city, in the capital city, going on and reporting such? And knowing the history of a newspaper such as the Pretoria News, it's been relied upon over the years, and most people have trusted not only Pretoria News, but the whole stable as a whole. But unfortunately, this story has had those repercussions. It has a negative impact to say, can we really trust anything that comes out of South African media? And it contributes negatively towards that.
Yeah, and I guess it doesn't help that the trust between the public and the media has been diminishing over time. In fact, the trust that the public has in the media, such reports are not really going to help us reignite that confidence and trust that people have always had in the media.
Not at all. I mean, we have seen that that trust has been dissipating over time in recent years, not only in South Africa, but across the world. We saw the Edelman Trust Barometer also saying that trust is not there. I mean, we are working hard as a media fraternity, whether viewers, whether readers, whether listeners, to say, can we regain that trust, the good public trust that they had in the media? But with such stories, unfortunately, they are taking us backwards. We still have a long way to go. We still have a lot of work to put in if we are going to totally regain that trust.
Yeah, it's all good and well, I suppose, Reggie, to call out independent media here. But have you, as Sanef, been consistent in calling out media organizations who fail to abide by the same ethical standards that you say the Pretoria News have breached? Because that's been the criticism on Sanef.
Yes, it's been the criticism, but I mean, for instance, Clement, I referred to retired Judge Satchwell's report. It's a 333-page report on ethics. If you remember well, that report was initiated after what happened at the Sunday Times with the whole SARS Rogue Unit reports, and then we call out, we support, and we have been doing that all along. I mean, recently there was an incident at the Sunday World. We supported the editor there, and we've been calling out such stories. And then any story, whether it happens at Independent, whether it happens with any of our member editors, we will call out those. Because at the end of the day, we are not only about media freedom, but we are also about upholding journalistic standards and ethics.
All right, Reggie Mwalusi, thank you so much for making time on The Lead this afternoon.